Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this PTV World Special. I am your host Omar Khalid. But today we are going to talk about a very important day, that is the World Maritime Day. Today on the 26th of September every year, the World Maritime Day is celebrated. Now this year the theme of the World Maritime Day is empowering women in the maritime community. Now, how important is the maritime community in any country, whether it be Pakistan or whether it be any other country? Because, of course, as you know, the Navy is one of the forces of any country that defends our motherland or any other motherland in case of any issue. But defense of the motherland is not the only function that the maritime or the Navy of any country has. There are so many other functions that the Navy has as well. Before I begin, I'd like to kind of initiate this with the mission statement of the International Maritime Organization, under which the World Maritime Day falls every year. It says the mission of the IMO, it is a United Nations specialized agency now. It is to promote safe, secure, environmentally sound, efficient and sustainable shipping through cooperation. This will be accomplished by adopting the highest practical standards of maritime safety and security, efficiency of navigation and the prevention and control of pollution from ships, as well as through consideration of the related legal matters and the effective implementation of the International Maritime Organization's instruments with a view to their universal and uniform application. Now, a lot of things are covered under this, and of course the World Maritime Day is also a reminder for all the maritime agencies, whether it be that of Pakistan or any other country, that we need to speed up our efforts in order to remain at par with what the IMO is saying. And also empowering women in the maritime community goes with the Sustainable Development Goal number 5, which is also to talk about gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls in the society. Now, to talk about all of that, the importance of our maritime agency, the importance of the Navy, what the Navy has done, what the functions of the Navy is, and how does the Maritime Agency in Pakistan correlate with the World Maritime Day and the International Maritime Organization. I've been joined by 3 important guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. On my very right is Dr. Zafar Jaspal. You're a senior analyst, sir. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, to have joined us. Next to him is Dr. Rizwana Abbasi. You are an expert in international security. Dr. Saiba, thank you very much to have joined us. And last but not the least is Rear Admiral Saleem Saab. You are a defense analyst. Thank you, sir, to have joined us. Let's begin with you, Dr. Zafar Jaswal. I kind of made an introduction of what the International Maritime Organization does and how it is important and how it follows the United Nations Sustainable Goal, and this time it is the SDG 5, empowering women. Considering the fact that the Navy, whether it be in any country or in Pakistan, is a very important aspect of the security of the country, the IMO gives various other functions to the maritime agencies as well in all the countries. Do you feel it's an easy task for any maritime agency to follow up all the responsibilities apart from the defense of the country?
No, I think that first we have to properly conceptualize and contextualize what are the objectives of the IMO. In that context, it's very simple. Normally we say Navy is just for the sake of a defense or it has a military utility. No, for historically, naval power or a merchandise power or what we call it maritime power, it is very much reference, or in the modern time what we call it blue economy. So having said this, when we look about the Navy or these maritime objectives, they have a both. For example, Navy like Pakistani Navy, because they have to serve military mission during the wartime, they have to serve the peacetime missions. And in the military missions, when we say wartime, naturally you have to defend the borders, your sea lines. And in the peacetime, if you see that piracy at the high seas of Somalia, or as you can say Strait of Adam, these are very important challenges where the Pakistan Navy played a lot of role. See, at the same time, if you see that our Navy is participating in many kind of the movements like peacekeeping movements, Aman movements, that reflects that the Navy or a maritime power has a peacetime missions as well. And in the modern time, if you see maritime, if the 80 or 90% trade is done by this, and fortunately we are very much a littoral state, which is very significant. So in that context, when you look about Pakistan's Navy's objectives, or you can say our maritime ministry's objective, certainly if I can link with this development goals, and which you very rightly pointed out, this year they refer to the woman empowerment.
Exactly.
This woman empowerment issue is very much highlighted within the security sector governance reforms or developments discourse, and as well as with the maritime. So there is not only a single, if you see the leading powers, the leading naval power is today United States of America. In the United States of America, their both genders are contributing in the map. In addition to the war-fighting ships, you have other missions. In that, I think if we can start engaging our this 50% of the population, I mean the female population, and if as they are participating in the Air Force, they are participating in the Army, they are participating in the educational sector, they are participating in the other sectors. So we can very effectively use this potential of the state in, you can say, increasing our economy, stabilizing our, you can say, economic system, and moving ahead. And in that context, I think there are many areas where we can use them within the broader maritime affairs.
All right, usage is a very short term, but the importance of women in the maritime community cannot be underemphasized. Now, especially when the United Nations and other organizations, including our country, emphasize on the role of women in the society, whether it be in any role. The role of women in the armed forces cannot be ruled out, and especially now under the new sustainable development goals, and also how the new government is and the forces are moving ahead to include women in all fields of life. The role of women becomes even more important. Empowering women in the maritime community, how do you foresee that, and how important do you feel that is also for the security of our nation, and how much women in our country also put in as far as that is concerned?
I think under the IMO, they're trying to connect people, ports, and ships at the global level, and mainly within which they are trying to broadly generate awareness at a global scale and level, and in which they want to promote, of course, safer environment. Within safer environment, we have to see commercial and non-commercial, both the demands. And particularly, I am very pleased to see their agenda this year, that they are promoting women empowerment, and they are trying to create gender balance. From the outset, we have seen this is a very difficult subject area, and this industry, particularly maritime domain, has been heavily dominated and influenced by,
But how can women enter a domain that, as you said, heavily influenced by men? How can they contribute in your point of view?
Yeah, so particularly women, as I said, that you have to see both the missions, commercial and non-commercial, military missions, and of course, here we are talking about, as Dr. Jaspal rightly pointed out, that contemporary century basically relates to blue economy. And Asia has actually uplifted its ground, and Asia has become an engine of the global economy. And in Asia, blue seas and maritime domain of broader Asia Pacific region and IOR has become very important. In that context, of course, under the China-Pakistan economic corridor, of course, Gwadar port becomes an important capital for Pakistan, and within Gwadar port, we have to look into and exploit, economic potential of our maritime domain, thereby connecting it with industry and connecting it with socioeconomic growth of the country. So that is the point where you can exploit and harness, and generate a new pool of talent, thereby giving more opportunities to the women to come participate and play a participatory role. So not only sending them to the war mission or to the security domain in the ships, but also you can place them and station them on the ground and at the surface and land, where they can actually help and support, to take the mission ahead. And more significantly, of course, they can also play an important role in order to, train the relevant, pool people. They can teach, they can actually help initiate, sort of training missions, exercises, so on and so forth. So there are a lot of domains where we can actually, and we have to conceptualize as to how and why we have to create particularly jobs under the China-Pakistan and BRI corridor, and as to how we can make broader Asian women relevant to the maritime
context
domain.
in which you can use women in the maritime community?
Sorry?
Do you feel that the CPEC and BRI are the only contexts under the maritime community that the women can be used?
Yeah,
I mean, their services can be used, sorry.
Yeah, these are the contexts where I see that we can exploit jobs particularly, we can create more jobs for women. But of course, there are, national military missions where of course Pakistan Navy can create some more job positions, train, women. They can also play an important role in engineering domain, in technological domain, in academic domain. Of course, particularly, for example, I myself in academic domain focus on security and technological aspects of the, national and international affairs.
Exactly.
So particularly, I believe that there is a lot of scope, and Pakistani women are playing very important, potentially important, and contributing a role at the national and international level. So this is the domain that can be exploited.
All right, Rear Admiral Saleem Akhtar Saab, what would you like to add to that? Because you have a vast experience as far as the maritime agency is concerned. Now, the role of women cannot be underplayed, but it is kind of limited when it comes to the forces or when it comes to the maritime. What do you feel are the areas where they can play a major role?
Yeah, let me clarify first that like in the Army and the Air Force and other services, the role of women is in Pakistan Navy. When we talk of that, a very significant number of women and girls are already part of the Pakistan Navy.
Right.
They are doing in IT, doctor, medical and other fields, but they are in large number there. When we talk of specifically women empowerment, I must tell you that the International Maritime Organization, when we talk of that, we talk mostly of the shipping. Now, shipping is basically male dominant industry, where you can't really send the women at sea. The US Navy has tried it on the aircraft carriers when it comes to military applications. Similarly, for the commercial application as well, it is a bit difficult for the ladies to be there. But then we talk of maritime. Maritime is a very fast field, where you talk of coastal tourism, like she was mentioning, that in that you can use them for different other purposes as well, and administrative jobs, for teaching jobs, for there are hundred of other areas where they can play their part when it comes to the maritime domain. So I personally feel that there is a lot of scope for the women, but unfortunately in Pakistan, I call it sea blind. We are sea blind as a nation.
And why are we sea blind in your point?
We are, because in the sense right from the beginning, we have never looked towards the sea. Let me tell you, we have 95% of our trade coming through the sea. And you will be surprised to know that only 13 to 14% of our cargo is taken by Pakistani ships. Rest of the cargo is taken by foreign ships, and that amounts to almost like $4 billion annually.
All right.
See, we are not. Why? There has to be ships, merchant ships, which can carry your cargo.
True.
Similarly, how many of the Pakistanis, they eat other than fish, anything? If you really talk of, you have 1,000 kilometers of coastline where you have sea and all sort of things, but we don't. So that's what I'm saying. Even militarily or otherwise also, you see the importance that Navy should have been accorded is not there.
All right.
But now the realization has come, and especially with the induction, the CPAC program coming up. So all the seaward defense or the maritime security has to be provided by the Pakistan Navy.
All right.
So this you have to create an environment, a safe, secure environment for the shipping, whereby the port of Gwadar and the CPAC projects is, they feel confident that yes, it's the safe hand, and that's why the Pakistan Navy has erected a task force 188, where they are actually have employed a large number of assets for this particular purpose. And then also in the North Arabian Sea in particular and the Western Indian Ocean, we used to be part of a coalition campaign. Now we have made a regional approach, the Pakistan Navy.
All right.
So what we have is a regional maritime support patrol, which means that you have 24/7 Pakistan Navy ships at high seas protecting the maritime, this part of the world, against, because it's not only basically the shipping or the safety. Now the dimension has gone beyond, where you talk of piracy, you talk of maritime terrorism, you talk of human trafficking, drug trafficking, whatnot. All these aspects have to be looked after by Pakistan Navy. So this Pakistan Navy has to actually grow in a very big way to take care of that. But at the end of the day, your initial question was the women empowerment. From that point of view, I think blue economy is the answer, because if Pakistan has to develop economically, you know, agriculture, we have already reached our limits. You increase the yield, hardly any. You might have on the IT, but blue economy is one area where you can take Pakistan economy, you can multiply your economy through blue economy. So that is where I think Pakistan need to focus on blue economy, address the, and there you will find a large of portion of, you know, when we talk of gender equality, the women can play their part over there.
All right, when we talk about blue economy, Dr. Zafar Jaspal, you also mentioned that in the very beginning when we started talking. The International Maritime Organization also points a lot on the different aspects of the blue economy and how the maritime community can contribute towards it. When it comes to Pakistan, when it comes to this whole region, under the whole context of the CPEC as well, it gains even more perspective or more importance. Do you feel there are certain steps that need to be taken by the maritime agencies in Pakistan or the maritime community in Pakistan in order to exploit this to their benefit?
I think that there is a need that at all the sectors, when you are focusing on the maritime economy or blue economy, you have to identify that what can be done and what are opportunities. For instance, Pakistan as a littoral state, we have 2 seaports or 3 seaports. And third is it's again becoming an international seaport. Then we have a big coastal line, and naturally we are a seafaring states. And for our interest, that's what we call it safety of sea lines. Of these kinds of things are very important. Now, coming back to your question that how we can improve our economic or how we can exploit it. First is that it was very much pointed out by Saleem that there is a need of cargo ships. For instance, Pakistan is an agriculture state. Now, in the next month, the new season of the citrus is starting. Your citrus go to the Russia, Central Asia, rest of the world. If you have your own cargo ships, you can send it immediately. But if you have the other companies, you can send it, if it go to Dubai, it go to the other ports, and then it reach to Russia or other places. It sometimes quality is compromised.
All right.
So you have to first start your shipping industry and properly. There was time when the building was in Karachi and it was very much vibrant at that time. It has declined with the passage of time. So you have to restart it. So when you talk, don't look the maritime only with reference to the naval power or a military utility. Use it both for military and civil application, and civil application has a broader perspective. So in that context, that is one area. Second area is that when we talk about, when you're looking about this coastal line, you can look about this, as it was pointed out, this tourism. Third is that sea is rich of foods, and how we can use the sea for our food management or these kind of things, that could be the other area. But for all these things, you need not only, even unfortunately, we don't have a manpower. We are talking about women empowerment, keeping in mind the international SHGs or these kind of things. But do we have here training for the manpower? So yes, in Karachi we have certain academies or institutions which are, you can say, training the people who can do the jobs in the, you can say, on the cargo ship, they can do a job on the cruises or these kind of the things. But the point is that when your own company is not there, so job market again limited. So we need a vocational, we need to invest in this field. We have to capture the opportunity, and here what the Dr. Rizwana pointed out, it's one opportunity, but out of that opportunity we can create many opportunities. So like CPEC, Gwadar is becoming a new seaport.
Exactly.
You need to how to manage the seaport. So there you can include the women's. If you travel in the international airports, for example, at the international airports, big workforce is women's. Even they are, you can say, handling the flights coming in and going out in the cargo or these things. When you focus on your own airport, you do not find hardly a woman working there. So similarly, look this what we call it maritime area or blue economy. Make it first, explain what is the blue economy, how we are going to exploit it, and naturally, look what's the advantage of the sea. The advantage of the sea is that where your landmass ended, from there your world started, and it's unlimited world. It connects you with the not only rest of the countries, it connects you to the other continents. So it provides you, it's a vista to reach anywhere in the world, and if you are able to use vistas or these roads more appropriately with your human or these kind of resources, you can improve your internal economy. If you study, though they went for these colonial powers, or even from the history, if you can see, they read the literature produced on the Athens and Spartas. Why the Athens were always? Because they were using sea very intelligently. Their merchant ships were going, they were coming at that time, and even when the Britain sun rises as an empire, it was the sea. So even today, where is the interesting challenge? When the Chinese started their, what we call it, this OBI initiative, before that they started looking for it, they're talking about it, they started linking the sea. What the American writers started criticizing, string of pearls. Now, that is why the Americans, or they are afraid, why they are looking at China, or they wanted to contain China in Southeast Asia, and why they are building the India to check the China, that is basically Indian Ocean, China Sea, or Asia Pacific debate. And Asia Pacific, why it's significant? Because Indian Ocean is one of the biggest trade route. If you just see on the map, it seems that just like web, everything is there. So in that kind of area, if our human resource is not available, certainly we will be lagging behind. So in the human resource in the modern time, if you're simply relying only on the male community, you can't compete with the rest of the world because your working hands are lesser. So you have to bring, as it was pointed out, that yes, in the medical sector they are there, Navy's hospital, but there are many other areas.
Exactly, there are many other areas, but there are also new areas, Dr. Sahiba, that we can maybe involve women in. We know that women are now pilots. They have been flying planes. Why can't, in your point of view, can they fly ships? I'll ask you that as well after Sav. But ma'am, what in your point of view, why can't they run ships or be part of the management of important ships or even submarines? Your point of view.
Practically, I think it is very tough and hard for women to manage under the water, living there for a very long time. So practically, developed states also conducted surveys, and they came up with the conclusions that it is very hard for women to live and sustain the capacity, that they have endured with that sort of capacity for such a long period of time. And it is a very difficult phenomena, and giving that sort of role to the woman. So practically, it is not feasible. It is not approachable, and it has a lot of dimension attached. Secondly, as you highlighted, that there are cyber domains. There is a lot of development taking place in the cyber domain where women can take their role, particularly
there's piracy
attached
that is happening even in the maritime sector. There is trafficking that is happening.
Yes, particularly attached to maritime domain. But what is the most significant dimension that is worrisome in the contemporary era is both, of course, assessing the environment in commercial and non-commercial domain, in security, in traditional and non-traditional domain. You see, as I highlighted, that if you see in the broader context of the Asia Pacific and IOR, waters, and of this particular evolvement of security environment in this region, you will be surprised to see there is a lot of competition, cooperation, competition, and confrontation among and between smaller and bigger states, underway at a time. So in IOR, our Indian Ocean region, is the place where there are bigger and smaller actors playing at a time. So for example, as I said, that 80% of the world trade is directly dependent on blue seas and blue waters. At the same time, 40% of shipping passes through every day through Strait of Hormuz, and you see that a lot of intensified environment is shaping up in the broader Arabian Sea and in the broader IOR. When we talk about security environment between the United States of America and China, US has actually shifted its political, economic, and security, focus in Asia. And when we talk about security environment in Asia, they have actually shifted a lot of their batteries. They have stationed their batteries, their missile systems, their aircraft carriers, their forces in the particularly in the Asia Pacific region. And United States, as Dr. Jaspal very rightly highlighted, has been a maritime power of this broader Asian region for last 70 years. At the moment, United States holds maritime supremacy, and at the same time, China is good in terms of managing its batteries and its forces at the land in the context of land domain, but not at the level of sea. Or they do not hold that sort of superiority and supremacy at sea or in the air. So they are also competing and uplifting their status in that direction. So India in this context is playing an important role. So when question comes, so basically both India and United States of America are trying to maximize their broader economic influence or influence in the security domain through bilateral, trilateral or multilateral alliance system. So when questions come to multilateral or bilateral alliance system, basically United States holds dominance in the Western Pacific region, where they have taken South Korea as their northern anchor, whereas Japan and South Korea as northern anchor, whereas Philippines and Australia as southern anchor. So there is a lot of competition, particularly in relation to managing and dealing with maritime disputes.
All right.
So now the same phenomena then shifts because of China-Pakistan economic corridor to maritime domain. So whatever is going on between Iran and the United States of America or Saudi Arabia directly or indirectly relates to your maritime evolving security dynamics.
All right.
So we should
Maritime evolving security dynamics. Very interesting point that you've mentioned. Rear Admiral Saleem Akhtar Saab, maritime security. How important is it to a country like Pakistan when we know that we've got, whether it be Gwadar or whether it be the Arabian Sea, that we're in direct touch with, and of course in these recent developments in the international world, where we need to also be very wary of all fronts where the enemy or anybody else can kind of come forward. How important does Pakistan's maritime security come into play?
Yes, already mentioned maritime security is the important aspect, because especially when you talk of CPEC, as I mentioned earlier, you have to have a secure maritime environment for your success of Gwadar port or for the CPEC project. From that standpoint, it is very important. Plus, with this CPEC coming into play, this North Arabian Sea is going to be filled with all sort of nationalities playing their roles. And that is where we have to guard. People who are not in favor of CPEC will try their bit to disrupt the system. And then security is not just limited to military security in terms of military to military confrontation or something. As I mentioned, there are so many aspects, like piracy is there, the maritime terrorism is there. So what happens is, in such cases, when an event takes place, once the event takes place which is not really conducive for that environment, then what happens? Your insurances goes up, like in the wartime. So you, Pakistan, being a country which is dependent on foreign shipping to export and import of its trade, so you can imagine the amount of effect that impact is going to have on this. Because as I mentioned earlier, only 13 to 14% is being shipped through your Pakistan Navy Pakistani commercial shipping. Rest is through foreign shipping. If some incident takes place and they don't feel secure, and if they call it in their terms a high risk area, then the insurance goes multiplied. So instead of 4 billion, then you are talking of 6 billion. A country which is already starved of foreign exchange, you can't afford to do that. So maritime security, because there are three aspects to this IMO, the main topic that we are discussing today, that the International Maritime Organization. One is the safety. When we talk of safety, we talk of safety of the ship.
Exactly.
So the first convention that they had was SOLAS, safety of life at sea.
In 1960.
Because they felt for last 2 centuries, they were trying to have an organization which can take care of this so that the nations can follow the rule. It took them till such time the United Nations was established. And it's after that in 1948 that this organization came into existence. And 10 years afterwards, in 1958, it was actually came into force when Pakistan became the member of it. Now there are about 174 members to that. So SOLAS is one thing. Then is the security, that aspect that we were talking about just now, where so many variables are involved nowadays. And I'll tell you one thing, the most important in my view is the third aspect, which is the environment, which is drastically, because this impact came when the first ship in 1967, it broke down and released 120,000 tons of oil. So what happened? It created a disaster at sea. So those people, the people on the coast, they got affected. It was really bad. That is where they started thinking that we need to talk of how to prevent the pollution. So this is something we are talking of 1973. But then they realize it's not only the accidental pollution which is causing the problem. It is the operational pollution which is responsible. And let me tell you, being a naval officer, what is operational pollution? When the ships are out at sea, they have tanks full of fuel. When they use up the fuel, those tanks become empty. So what you do, you fill seawater into it, and then you balance it. Then you ballast it, you pump it out to keep the trim or whatever. Similarly, all the machinery on the ships is run through cooling of seawater. So what happens, there is a mixture of oil and this thing which accumulates at the bottom. We call them in our engineering terms as the bilges or the waste machinery water. So normally what used to happen was they used to pump it out into the sea. Sea is a very open drain,
Exactly.
and nobody notices that. So then they realized that is another thing. So that's why we call it MARPOL.
All right. I'll ask you to hold your thought here. Ladies and gentlemen, we're continuing a new phase of the importance of International Maritime Organization. That is, as far as the pollution is concerned, that is also a very important aspect of our environment as we speak. We'll be right back after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and we're discussing the World Maritime Day. It's a very important day for the entire maritime community, whether it be Pakistan or across the globe, and this year's theme is empowering women in the maritime community. But the whole concept of the maritime community goes much beyond. We've been talking about women empowerment, we've been talking about women's role in the maritime community, and as we've highlighted the different aspects of the responsibilities that the women can also have in the maritime agencies and in the maritime community. But coming to the role of the International Maritime Organization, we were before the break talking to the Admiral Saleem Saab, and we were talking about pollution and its effects, and how that also creates a whole hazard in this day and age. When we know about climate change, when we know about other effects that are hampering the normal development of any community, of any society, of any country. Now, when we talk of pollution, how you said that there's different things that have been put into place by the International Maritime Organization. How can we in the Pakistan Navy also give or play our role in that?
It's a very important thing, not only from Pakistan Navy perspective. I think we need to see, because Pakistan as a country, we have been contributing a lot towards pollution, and we need to make a check on that. And especially in Karachi, where all the industrial waste, we are talking of 341 million gallons per day of this black muck going into the sea. Now what is happening is, it's totally damaging the ecology over there, but the marine ecology. The ships, the fish, and the prawn, all their breeding grounds. The biggest effect is on mangroves. So mangroves is, we have the world's 5th largest mangrove at one time. All this has dissipated because there is no control on pollution. So I think it's not only Pakistan Navy on its own has been doing a lot. The reason being that Pakistan Navy ships, while they are in harbor, you're still running your machinery. So all this garbage goes into the suction and chokes the machinery, and it's very damaging. Plus pollution plays an important role in increasing the corrosion rate. Now this is something that you cannot measure, because all the jetties and all, when they corrode away, you spend billions just to recover from there. So when I talk of pollution, that is my favorite subject because I keep speaking on it. All this Karachi, this waste that we are talking of now, where does it go? It goes into the sea. What happens to it? It goes and settles down at the bottom. Now, all that marine life is then, and it also contains very dangerous chemicals like chromium, lead and all that, because all the tanneries are, throwing their waste into the nalas, which is then eventually ending up over there. So this is the sort of, the scale is too big. We need to address, as a provincial government, I think Sindh needs to act a lot. Navy on its own keeps doing efforts to highlight that. Nowadays, Navy is holding seminars, the importance of IMO and in that pollution as well. Similarly, they're taking people to the beaches to clean the beaches. This is all part of the drive to make people aware. Okay, what is the sort of this effect of
pollution,
pollution,
especially when all the waste goes to the sea. Dr. Zafar Jaspal, role of Navy goes much beyond pollution, much beyond the defense of the motherland, and there are so many other responsibilities that the Navy has been having, and you've witnessed that, and we've talked about that in the past as well. How has been the development, in your point of view, of the Pakistan Navy over the decades?
I think that Pakistan Navy gradually has grown up. If you look at from the perspective of the military, or you can say armed forces defense, from very small, you can say Navy, it has now today say Navy which can be a nuclear capable Navy. They have recently tested the submarine launch ballistic missiles or these kind of the things. So militarily speaking, the Navy has did a lot of things. But with reference to today's day, I think that Pakistan Navy has performed a lot. For example, starting from the sea piracy, then moving towards this harbor cleaning. They have a missions like this, training the people how to use efficiently. We have a Pakistan Navy academies there, and interestingly, Pakistan Navy's academy, it is also playing a very good role in connecting with the rest of the friendly countries. Like many military officers from the friendly countries join the naval courses in these academies. By this way, they are developing. But where the area is that, as from the beginning of this program, we have been focusing that the question which we have to answer is that is Pakistan Navy is doing something for the empowerment of a woman, which is this year's theme. My understanding is that when I see Pakistan Navy, according to its size, we cannot compare it with the Pakistan Army. Its size is limited according to the role of the Navy. It is doing a lot. You find female naval officers there, and especially in their hospital, in their other areas they're doing. But here the most important thing is where we need to, or the Pakistan Navy has to focus. Though we can say it's a military organization, but at the same time, it can contribute in the peaceful mission. It is doing it well. So let's say we should have to engage the women in the case of, like they have this mission of harbor cleaning. So they can bring from the school the children or these kind of people, and definitely they are engaging it. That is the area where they can sensitize the people. As earlier it was pointed out, environmental pollution. If you see that today, this is a big challenge. Where this Indus River is, or Sar Creek, because of these forests, which we call it mangroves forests, they are shifting, the sea is coming inside. So we have to look at how we can stop it.
All right.
And that is a part of the pollution in this. And then the other thing is, look, when we talk about, we have a harbors, like we have generally we say Gwadar is a seaport, international seaport, which is having only an economic dimension. But for the defense of these seaports, because we are living in the age of 5th generation of the warfare. I can give you an example. A few months back, the terrorists entered in the, you can say, 5-star hotel at the Gwadar. And the Pakistan Navy Special Forces, I think, conducted the operation successfully. You can say cleared this what we call it 5-star hotel. For the prevention of this kind of action or anti-state forces onslaught, or for the sake, there the Navy's role cannot be ignored.
All right. Now, defense,
because this is I'm talking defense when you talk about the military aggression by the other state. But when you are living in the 5th generation of warfare, and
you need to take into consideration
yeah,
many other
and
aspects
here
of
I
security.
think that Pakistan Navy's, those soldiers who or their Marines when they went and they cleared that hospital, that gave me confidence that my seaports or you can say my people who are on the sea or on the ports for the businesses, they are secure because the Navy has been providing.
Exactly. Security is one very important aspect, especially under this fifth generation warfare. Dr. Rizwana Basi, education is one thing that he highlighted also. When we talk of education, education is just not relegated to giving basic education. Education has many different dimensions. You are an educationist yourself, ma'am, and you teach security to different levels of students. How important is also to understand the different modalities of security, of pollution, of all the other aspects that the Navy is so known and renowned for around the world, and it should be in Pakistan as well. How important is the role of educationists to educate the Marines, to educate the naval officers in countries such as Pakistan about the different aspects and the responsibilities of the Marines?
As you highlighted that we need to educate scientifically,
Exactly.
educate not only military officers but also civilians and civilian students, those who are conducting their MPhil or PhD level research on scientific ground as to how understand the evolving security environment and traditional and non-traditional domain, relating it to the national problems, and then of course finding out scientific and research-based solutions in order to mitigate our futuristic challenges. So that is of course important in both the domains. When questions come to National Defense University, they have a special school where they educate people on this, but specifically when questions come to research, scientific research and relating it to development and of course industry, then of course universities play an important role. You can also of course conduct different time after time lectures, seminar series, conferences, but at the same time, as I said, that you can also initiate degree programs, but for that you need to find out job market for the student, those who considering the capacity and of course number of the students that you will be.
But even the students that are present there
generating.
need to be also, their capacity needs to be also be built on the different aspects, the different modalities that they need to, that they could encounter in the future as well.
Absolutely. So as I said that in particularly IOR and the Asian continent, future role of all the countries' navies has exponentially and drastically increased.
Exactly.
And particularly in Pakistan, Pakistani Navy can play an important role in order to launch diplomatic offense in order to improve ties with all the littoral and regional and extra-regional states, particularly in the context of generating awareness on China-Pakistan economic corridor and its significance for the socio-economic growth. And more significantly, tourism. Coastal and maritime tourism is an area that we have not yet exploited, that need to be exploited. And thirdly, as I said, that under, of course, broader, China-Pakistan economic corridor, you have a lot of security challenges that Pakistan is confronting. On that, you have to equip your Navy, particularly in the context of training them and then equipping them on the relevant platforms that are evolving and that had been stationed within IOR, Indian Ocean region. So a lot of high-tech navigation surveillance means, a lot of high-tech US and Indian shared platforms have been planted in the IOR,
and that need to be countered.
Plus now United States have stationed its batteries in the Arabian Sea. Particularly they have pushed their aircraft carriers forward. They have recently sent their forces, particularly after this attack that took place in Saudi Arabian oil Saudi Arabian oil refinery. So they have actually forwarded their forces to Arabian Sea. So that need to be kept in the context, particularly when questions
different things need to be kept into context. My final question to you, Rear Admiral Saleem Akhtar Saab, is we talked about economy. If you want to add something to what Dr. Sahib said, you please can. But also, there's one aspect that we not forgot, but need to mention in more clarity as well, is about the different economic zones and the role of the Maritime Agency in that, and also about the International Hydrophobic Department and its role as far as the Maritime Organization is concerned, especially in the context of Pakistan.
Yeah, I was just thinking actually it's not when we talk of women empowerment and we talk in the context of IMO, it's not limited to Pakistan Navy. Pakistan Navy is a very small from that point of view. The Ministry of Maritime Affairs is the main administrative authority in Pakistan. They issue the guidelines. Now, with respect to this IMO, they should be issuing instruction. I personally feel women can play a very important part in port management. Now, they don't have to go on a ship at sea, yet they are participating in the maritime activity, and this port management is a very big thing. And of course, with CPAC coming, the Gwadar port coming in, what we see is that now they have realized what sort of expertise or education or academic knowledge that the student should carry, like the supply chain management or whatever. These are the areas where women can play a very important role. Coming to the one part of IMO is like International Hydrographic Organization. Now, this is an organization which suppose, in Pakistan, being a signatory to all that, are supposed to prepare hydrographic chart, navigational chart, maps, all these things have to be done. And what is happening is the most in the navies, it's the navies which do all this job. So this is the responsibility, Pakistan being signatory, that you have to produce chart of this area. You have to carry out the surveys, you have to make the charts and dissemination of these charts to the regional countries and otherwise to the world. So this all is the responsibility of Pakistan Navy. So it is very important that when we talk of this thing, they need to have awareness amongst our own countrymen as to what maritime is all about. And in that passing, I would just like to mention, like we were talking early, Pakistan have an exclusive economic zone. We talk of exclusive economic zone and the continental shelf. Let me tell you the difference between the two, because not normally it is mentioned. EEZ is the area where you can do fishing, we can do all these activities, and anything below the continental shelf you can exploit, whether it's oil, minerals or whatever. In the case of continental shelf, which is 50,000 square kilometers, then it's only everything below the continental shelf that Pakistan has the right to go for it.
All right.
So 290,000 square kilometer of this exclusive economic zone is a very big area in the sea that needs to be exploited. And I'm sure with the CPAC coming into play, and we talked of blue economy, so all these things are going to pick up pace.
All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much to all three of my guests. You had a lot of valuable contribution. Even I got to know a lot of new things about the maritime community, about Pakistan Navy, about its role in different spheres, and the role of educating the people, whether it be the Navy or other parts, and the role of women and empowering women in our Navy's concern. It's very important because when you empower people, society, including women, that is where you build a stronger society. Dr. Zafar Jaspal Sahab, Dr. Rizwana Basi Sahiba, and Rear Admiral Saleem Sahab, thank you so very much to have joined us. Today, ladies and gentlemen, is the World Maritime Day. And of course, today is with special significance to empowerment of women. Let's empower our women. Let's give them more roles to play, and let's give them more importance in all spheres of life, including that of the Pakistan Navy. And the Pakistan Navy, before I sign off, has a lot of different events going on today to celebrate the World Maritime Day, and we will be of course covering that as well in our different news segments. So I bid you farewell. I hope that you understood the whole concept of the importance of the Navy and the maritime community, whether it be the defense, in education, all the other aspects, and also in pollution. And I'll end with this motto by Navy. It's in Urdu, ladies and gentlemen. Himmat ka alam, Maula ka karam, maujum par kadam. Allah Hafiz.